ParaTruth Radio is a proud member of Evergreen Podcasts on killerpodcast.com.
Christian and non-Christian paranormal investigators. They have two different views, and it seems as if neither of them can ever agree on anything. So what happens when a mainstream view of the paranormal crosses paths with the Christian view? Something epic. This is ParaTruth Radio.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another and special ParaTruth Radio. My name is Justin.
And I'm Eric.
And tonight we're going to keep it really casual. We didn't plan anything just because this is kind of our not goodbye, but see you later episode. Something that we did want to stress, which Eric had brought up to me, so I figured we'd do it at the beginning and at the end. This isn't necessarily the end all for ParaTruth Radio. We are going to try and start doing some episodes monthly, but for right now, we're taking a break. Not really sure how long of a break just yet, but we're going to be taking a break. But we're going to be releasing monthly episodes as soon as we get into a groove with the new podcast, right in the pickle barrel, if we haven't announced that yet. So make sure you're checking that podcast out as soon as it's released. We're working very, very hard to make sure it's up by the beginning of October, and we're going to be working on our social medias for that, getting a good launch going and all that stuff. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, this is going to be a pretty interesting episode, and I hope it's a memorable one for you guys. So how did you want to start?
Man, I mean, there's so many places we could go with this. I mean, I feel like let's start with like some reminiscing, right? Because we've been doing this ParaTruth for 9 years now, and we've had a number of different episodes that have been really great. And so this past week, I was actually on a film set with Lean Cuisine, and I was wearing my PTR t-shirt. So I had multiple crew members coming up to me asking me what PTR was because they didn't know about this. But turns out, on the back it says ParaTruth Radio, and they're like, "What's ParaTruth Radio? Sounds like something paranormal." And so I told them a little bit, just a quick elevator pitch, and they're amazed. They can't wait to listen because they love the paranormal and certain aspects of it, witchcraft in particular for one of them, aliens for another. But one of the questions that my art director, who was on the set, had asked me was but what is the best episode? Like, what is the number one episode on PTR? And it took me a moment because I was like, wow, we've had a lot of episodes that are just really phenomenal, especially when we have our guests on. So I think right now I just want to take a quick moment to kind of get your thoughts on what you think is maybe one of, or maybe even the top 3 best episodes of PTR in your opinion.
Now are we going like our personal favorite or like best downloaded?
No, personal favorite. Let's go with personal
favorite.
Yeah. I think it's a tough one.
Yeah. I think one of my all-time favorites is the Goat Man episode.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to remember the title. Cryptid or Devil's Reject? Is that what it was?
I think actually it was something like that. I'm actually trying to search it real quick.
Just because we had not covered it at that point, and it was something of folklore close to a place where we've visited before, and then eventually got to go to the Trellis one of the trellises that this creature is supposedly haunting or visiting or whatever it is that it's doing.
Right. And that episode was History of the Goatman, Elusive Cryptid, or Devil's Reject. So you're right, mostly. We actually had
a couple words that I missed out.
We actually had 2 episodes though, because there's another episode that we did in 2016, by the way, but we did another episode 2 years ago, June 21st, 2021, called The Goatman, Cryptid or Deformed Spirit, which I actually forgot about that episode, but that was another one. That was kind of we're going through like a revisitation with some of our older episodes when we did that one.
The original one I liked, because I mean the revisit's great, but it's like we've talked about the reason we're kind of stepping away, at least for a while, is, I mean, we revisited it. It was probably not too much different than what we originally came out with, except for a couple of nuances here and there. And then, was that before or after our investigation?
That would have been before, because we went on the investigation in October of 2021.
Okay. And I don't think we ever really released anything on that, because there was nothing really there that we could see, but we didn't go in the dark. We went during the day, and you're really not allowed up on the trellis unless you sneak in.
We tried. We considered it.
Yeah.
The gate was wide open, so that we could have done it, but I mean, there just would have been no one around to bail us out, was the issue.
Right.
If we got busted.
It'd be hard to call my wife and be like, yeah, can you wire us $3,000? We were trespassing for an investigation. I'm trying to think if there's any others. I guess the only other one that comes to my mind is the Roanoke Island, the missing colony of Roanoke Island episode.
That one was a lot of fun as well. That was a good one. We had a big discussion on that, because there's so many different theories behind Roanoke, and one of them is the idea of a Wendigo that may have ravaged the town. Another is perhaps a werewolf-like creature, because down in that same area there happens to be various legends of dogmen around Roanoke. And then, if I'm not mistaken, I think we also considered possible UFO abductions, because these people disappeared without a trace. Other than, of course, the more scientific aspect of it, which is a hurricane came in and just wiped everybody out, but that is fun. That's the other 3.
Yeah, and then I was trying to think of a guest. The one that I always remember is Ben Radford talking about the chupacabra, which I brought up on one of the past couple episodes. Or I'm sorry, the one that we brought up with Pat on Paranormal Heart, which, if you guys are listening to this, we did in kind of a beginnings and endings. That's the name of the episode with Kat from Paranormal Heart, so make sure you check that out as well. Yeah, those are top 3 in my mind.
Okay. I mean, those are good top 3. Those are pretty solid. I know that Goatman is actually, I think, number 2 on our list of the top 3 highest rated episodes too, or the highest listened to.
The Roanoke one was really high too.
Was it? So
yeah,
maybe that's number 3, 2, 3.
Top 3 downloads was the Roanoke, the Goatman, and the Salem Witch Trials. Those were the top 3 ever.
Yeah. Fantastic. Just fantastic.
What about you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, of course, my number 1 is the Salem Witch Trials. So that was the title of that was the Birth of American Communism, Salem Witch Trials, I think. The Birth of American Communism, something like that. But that was a really fun discussion, and I actually listened to that last year as I was working out. Which usually I listen to music, but I thought a podcast, why not? Wasn't the best workout, if I recall, because I was too focused on the podcast and not just like getting my head in the pump game, But no, that was a lot of fun. And it was this discussion as to whether or not the quote unquote witches who were put to death during the Salem witch trials were whether or not they were actually witches, or if it was some sort of communism that was happening there, where people were trying to use fear in order to lead the village. And of course, we know there has been witch trials throughout the northeast of the United States, but Salem is the most prominent. It's the most famous. Right around that same time, there was also some happening down in the southwestern area of the same state, even in like Virginia and West Virginia, things like that. But yeah, Salem was definitely the most famous of them. The second episode I think that I really, really enjoyed was, of course, anything with our werewolves, but in particular, an episode called Spiritual Cryptids, Spiritual Lycanthropy. So this was during a series in which we were talking about spiritual cryptids and how these cryptids may manifest in a spiritual form as opposed to a physical form. Because a lot of the information that we have on cryptids, especially things like the Bigfoot, the Dogman, werewolf, even chupacabra, we don't have any solid evidence. We have photos, we have some videos, but a lot of it is just word of mouth. And even in these photos and videos, everything's so blurry that there's some discussion or debate as to whether or not these beings, these creatures, may be spiritual, or a newer idea is that they might be extraterrestrial and therefore capable of manipulating our camera frequencies and things like that to prevent us from getting a good solid photo or video evidence. On top of that, these creatures tend to show up and then disappear super fast without much explanation and without much noise. So we did this whole discussion on spiritual cryptids, and that was a lot of fun because we not only used various sources to try to back up those claims or ideas, but we just kind of played with it and used our own perspectives on how these creatures may indeed be spiritual in nature. The final one, though, for me, I think, and it's a tough one. This is a tough call for me, but I think it may be the what is it called? The Galactic Federation episode that we did. Who I forget. I gotta look up her name real quick. Unless you remember it offhand.
Not coming to me. I know it starts with an E, but I can't remember. Her name.
Elena Dannon.
Yeah.
And that was the episode Galactic Federation of Worlds. And this is somebody who had stated that she has had experiences with extraterrestrials since she was like a little girl. And that up until today, she's been taking multiple flights on alien spacecraft throughout the universe, even have had the opportunity to fly spacecraft on her own. But that during these times, she has been introduced to a grand number of extraterrestrial races, some of which are good, some of which are evil, and how there's kind of this battle for humanity in a way, and almost like a conspiracy among the extraterrestrials themselves who don't want humanity to know about them, but it's like, I guess, in a first person sense, but are using other people, humans, to kind of push the information out. And it sounds weird, but it's very similar to really any religion that has ever existed. But most obvious, of course, and most prominent would be the Christian religion, in which God doesn't come forth to each person and say, "Hey, here I am," but he uses people, right? His servants, if you call them that, or children, who will go out and preach the gospel. And so, according to Elena, she's doing the same thing, and these extraterrestrials are doing the same thing. They are abducting people, in this case, Elena, and then having her proclaim the news that these aliens do indeed exist. They're out there, and there's going to be a time in which they kind of make themselves known to the world, but it's going to be a while.
Yeah, that was a good episode. One that you have brought up a couple of times, Evolution 2.0. That was also a really good episode. Trying to think. Yeah, I guess those are the only ones that really stick out to me.
And that's not to say any of the other ones aren't good, because
right.
I could rattle off a ton of great episodes, but those are just the top 3 for me.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of great guests, a lot of great topics. We've kind of gone the gambit from one extreme to another, as we talked about between ourselves and even with Kat. You know, for a while we were doing the debate thing. Then we kind of swung the other way where it was more faith-based, and that was just due to certain things going on at the time, persuasions. And then we've kind of gone back the opposite way and have settled more on a medium path. And it's been great having so many different people on to talk about so different perspectives.
Oh yeah, for sure. The perspectives, I think, what make ParaTruth prominent in the paranormal world, because we're not coming from just one opinion. You know, we're bringing on people who have different views, different opinions on everything that we talk about, and we really leave it up to our listeners to decide for themselves what they want to believe, don't want to believe, etc. The evidence, you know, you need to look at the evidence, weigh it, and figure out what you think is real and what isn't, what's just, you know, myth and legend, if you will.
Right. Yeah. Well, since we're reminiscing, I did have a couple of our close friends send a few recorded messages, and we're going to play them here for you guys. And it's going to be kind of a bittersweet thing. So here we go.
Oh, hold up. Before you do it, we're just doing one at a time, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
One at a time.
I wasn't sure if you put them all together in one go. Okay.
One at a time. All right, here we go.
Justin and Eric, I cannot believe that ParaTruth Radio is coming to a close. I am so sad. I absolutely love the show. I've always loved the show, and I have a personal investment. I'm biased because it's sort of how I met you guys and became friends with you. And I don't know, it's just, I look to your shows for that extra oomph with anything spiritual. And I don't even have a favorite episode because I love them all, but I'd say my favorites were like the Halloween ones where you would touch on different topics in one episode, or when you guys had a bunch of people on and group discussions. Those are always fun. And of course the ones I was on too, they were pretty cool. So, but I absolutely loved your show because you did your research and you guys applied your personalities to the show. You were so down to earth and you knew what you were talking about, and then you had the comedy. You were both so funny sometimes, and just by being you. So I don't know. It's weird. It's like I'm saying goodbye, like you guys are moving out of my house or something. But at least I can go back and listen to all the old episodes. I like that. So, I'll probably just have to stalk you that way. But I'm excited to see you're both on to bigger and better things. Well, maybe not better. I don't know, because ParaTruth is pretty high up there. But, anything you guys do is absolutely creative and amazing, and I enjoy. So thank you both for all the info, the laughs, and the motivation to open our minds and explore the unknown.
And that was Heidi Linden from way back when, Talk Supernatural. She's actually doing a different show now, or working on getting a different show going. So we will probably be visiting with her at some point on her new show.
Mm-hmm.
And Heidi, funny sometimes. I feel we're funny all the time.
We're a riot. When I'm in a bad mood, I just turn on PTR.
Heidi has become a very close friend to us, along with the other two that sent us messages, and I can't believe how many friends we've made through just doing this podcast over the years.
Yeah, it's insane. And we've had friends who stuck around from the beginning. We've had friends who are in for a season, but they've all shed light for us in our journey. They've all have really helped us to grow in our understanding of the paranormal. And I think without the friends that we did make, whether they're still around or not, we wouldn't quite be where we are today, you know. So definitely thank you, Heidi, for sharing your thoughts. And you know, it is coming to a close mostly, but hopefully we will be doing an episode a month coming up here at some point.
For sure. All right, next one.
Hey everyone, Kat Ward here, host of Paranormal Heart Podcast. You know, it's hard for me to believe that Eric and Justin are retiring ParaTruth Radio. They've been a part of my life for so many years, and I've enjoyed listening to their shows. I started out as a fan, and I am greatly honored to say it's turned into a great friendship over the years. It's difficult for me to say which is my favorite part of the show. I've loved their Christmas and Halloween specials, where they talk about various creatures and traditions of the seasons. They've put so much research into educating us on so many topics. But I think for me, I'd have to say my favorite episode was called The Entity with Many Hats, with guest Kyle J. I think it was released back in 2017, 2016. I think it was 2017. Kyle speaks about his movie about the Hat Man, and until then, I hadn't realized that the entity that I often saw as a child had been seen by so many other people. I never spoke about it to anyone, so hearing that others had the same encounters, well, it just blew me away, and it made me realize that I was not alone. So I'd like to thank Eric and Justin for devoting so many years in talking about every aspect of the paranormal. You've kept us entertained and educated. Hats off to you both. I look forward to hearing what you'll be working on in the near future, and I wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. Much love and respect to you, my brothers.
Is that just a message or a commercial? Because
It was
so
a little
well
bold.
so well done and very well scripted. That's what I do too. Don't want to mess it up. The Entity with Many Hats with Kyle J. That was May 22nd in 2017. That was a really fun episode. That back then the Hat Man was like one of those entities that for some reason was just blowing up across social media and television. So I was surprised when we started doing the initial research and before even talking to Kyle about it, just how many people have experienced this particular entity.
Well, and I don't think we had ever really heard the term Hat Man at that point.
Not up to that point. He was pretty quiet. And I think the first time I heard about him was on some, I don't even know what the show was, but it's something on History Channel. They have those haunted, like tell your my haunted life type stories. But yeah, that was definitely a fun episode. Kat, one of our best buddies, who's been around for many years, and like Justin said, we just did an episode with her as of this recording earlier this week, and so you guys should definitely check that out when it's up. We'll make sure we got that link for you guys. But it's always fun, like talking to her. There's so many discussions of different things, so definitely gonna be missing that. But thankfully, as you guys will see on her episode, she has invited us or put out the invitation for us to come hang out with her at any time we want. So I'm sure we'll be like jumping on to an episode here or there around October, because that's kind of our favorite month, especially when it comes to the paranormal.
Yeah, for sure. And Kat, thanks for the very kind words.
They were all lies.
They were lies. It's we've always been on the fence on whether to keep going with ParaTruth Radio. We still are. So that's why we are really wanting to just maybe start doing monthly episodes after Right in the Pickle Barrel starts getting kicked off. We may even release one for Halloween, since it'll be spooky season that time of the year. So
I'll tell you what, you definitely won't hear a new podcast after this until at least around October 31st. So we've got a lot going on right now otherwise, but I would definitely like to do something for Halloween. And just to correct you, we haven't always been on the fence about whether or not to let go of PTR. But up to recently, like the last couple of years, it has been a big thing that has been on our mind.
Right. Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
And it's, it is hard to let it go because, I mean, it's 9 years old. We kind of raised this little baby from past iterations of our own shows that we've had since 2008. So it's really tough to walk away, even for a short time. But I think doing that will allow us to not only produce more stuff for other listeners who are interested in other genres, but I think when we come back to do an episode here or there, those episodes are going to be at much even higher quality, and we're going to set higher standards for PTR should we decide to do that.
All right, next one.
Hello, this is James McKinney. I like ParaTruth Radio because the selection of guests like Jerry, Lynn, Kozak. It's hard to pick favorite episode because I liked all of them. But just like the simple format, how the hosts got along together, or when one of them was gone, the other one picked up. And that's why it encouraged me to do my podcast. I owe a lot of gratitude and debt to them for doing it and being supportive of me when I ask questions to them and all that. But that's what I liked about their podcasts.
All right. That was, as he said, Jim McKinney. I don't know if he is still doing his podcast because I haven't seen any new episodes from him lately, but he had Supernatural. Oh gosh, it'll come to me. But Jim, I think a lot of the people that we are hearing from today, we've helped as we bumbled through the errors of doing podcasting to help them get started too. And that's been a really awesome aspect of our show too.
Right. I didn't want to step over you, but I believe the show is Paranormal Supernatural Activity Radio.
Yes.
Yeah, when he first reached, I mean, heck, we've been, I think, how long has it been? I want to say like since 2016, at least 2015 even. That we started like met him? I mean, online.
Probably around then, because we started in 2014 and it was around 2015 that we started meeting a lot of people, like Justin Fall and Jim McKinney. Jerry, you had met through school, but we had started kind of getting to know a little bit better with the show. And I'm trying to think how far back everybody goes. It was probably around that time where we met a lot of our friends through the paranormal.
Yeah. That was an interesting time. Everyone just kind of like popped up in our life all at the same time. Like it was weird. But yeah, Jim is definitely one of those people who's always consistently listened to the show. He's always interacting with us, not just on the show or for the show, but also just on a personal level as well. We're always getting hilarious stuff that he sends us on Facebook that he tags us. So which, Jim, I'll tell you this right now. I know I don't always like and everything that you send. I get so many messages and I mean to like write back and stuff. I totally forget. Ask Justin. I'm the freaking worst when it comes to doing anything or getting things done. I know
that's why I picked up the podcast while you were gone.
That's why he picked up the podcast. Yeah. And also why he does all the administrative stuff and finds our guests for us. I can't tell you how many times Justin was like, cool, can you reach out to this person? I'm like, yeah. And then like 3 weeks later, have we heard from this person? I'm like, oh shoot. Yeah, I never wrote them. That never happened.
It's been pretty awesome though. All right, last recording here.
Hi, Justin and Eric. Thank you so much for asking me to share the most awesome epic moments regarding Paratruth Radio. So I like all of your shows, and I appreciate you both. And I know we have a history together and such, that you had kindly invited me back in 2016 to collaborate underneath the ParaTruth Radio Network. And that was awesome. And I appreciated the shows that we did before, during, and after. God bless you both. And I pray that everybody who listens to this would be blessed. And we're going to miss Justin and Eric with ParaTruth Radio. Love y'all. Bye.
Alicia, and say peace.
That's my thing. No one can do that. I should have copyrighted it or something, trademark it.
Thank you, Jerry. I know that was a very shortened version of what you sent us, but we were trying to keep these very, very short just so we can keep going with the rest of the episode. But thank you, everybody who submitted recordings, as well as who's been listening to us either from the very beginning or wherever you picked us up at. We've been super appreciative of all of the support and interactions that we've had. And I mean, like we keep saying, this isn't goodbye. This is just a see you later.
Farewell.
Auf Wiedersehen, good night.
That's it. Yes. I was thinking about that before the show, and I meant to look it up and totally forgot. I said that could be the title of today's episode.
There you go. All right, we're gonna take a quick break and switch gears just a little bit, because there's a topic I have fresh in my mind. It just happened this week, so we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back with ParaTruth Radio.
Hi, I'm Sean McCabe.
And I'm Carrie McCabe.
We are, well, married, obviously, but we're also obsessed with the darker side of things.
True crime stories, alien abductions, poltergeists. If it leaves you scratching your head and keeping those lights on at night, we want to hear about it.
That's why we host the podcast, Ain't It Scary, with Sean and Carrie.
Every week, we bring our listeners a true story guaranteed to send chills down your spine. From history's most brutal serial killers to the mystery of spontaneous human combustion.
Yep, lots of these stories leave unanswered questions behind, and you'll get to poke through the rubble of the evidence with a hardened skeptic and
someone whose mind is more open to fun.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
You can find Ain't It Scary with Sean and Carrie wherever you get your podcasts, and on social media at Ain't It Scary. Come play with us.
What's up, and welcome back to ParaTruth Radio. As always, my name is Eric.
And I'm Justin.
And this is kind of our so long farewell for now episode. We'll be back maybe around October for a episode for Halloween, and then who knows, spontaneous episodes might pop up here and there. But before going to break, you said that there was a topic you wanted to bring up that had happened this week, so I'm going to hand it off to you.
Okay, for those of you in the paranormal community, I know this was a huge thing for everybody, for everyone else in the country. I'm sure it was one of those things that has always been in the back of your mind, and that was the congressional hearing on UAPs or UFOs, whatever you want to call them. Me and Eric prefer UFOs, and the UAPs is what the government has now since defined them as. But I watched the best moments, if you will, of the hearing. I want to watch the full 2 hours, but I have a feeling I would fall asleep.
Yeah, it sounds boring.
But basically what happened was the government got wind of all these whistleblowers coming out now from different military organizations of former people in the military. And basically what it was is, yes, we have vehicles. Yes, there were biologicals recovered. Now, what those biologicals are, of course, they don't really go into in-depth detail. They don't necessarily say bodies, quote unquote. They don't necessarily say live or dead. But one quote from that was that there was somebody on the hearing board that asked, are these non-human biologicals? And the one guy, cannot remember his name, said yes, they're non-human biologicals. He doesn't say entities. He doesn't say anything that would discriminate to say extraterrestrial or aliens. So to me, basically what this was a way for them to just say, okay, yeah, they're there.
Yeah. But if I'm not mistaken, it wasn't necessarily that he was referring to the extraterrestrials themselves, but instead we're talking to non-human origin of this craft that they found, as opposed to bodies.
Right. The craft was the main source of the hearing, but they did get into this one guy who was the whistleblower who came out on there was a specific show he came out on to talk about this. I think it was 60 Minutes. And he basically said, the government, or not the government, the Pentagon and military agencies are lying to our government because they're not telling them that these things have been apprehended or retrieved.
Mm.
And that was the whole point of this. But one thing I do want to point out is just remember Project Bluebeam.
Mm-hmm.
Don't buy into it, especially if things start going towards, one world religion, one world government. Not saying that there couldn't possibly be benefits for that, but at the same time, it's a means of control.
I mean, let's face it, when it comes to just the world, period, and in particular our government and whatnot, it's always about control. It's always been about control.
Yep.
Freedom. As the term is, freedom is an illusion, and of course, many of us, thankfully, are free in many ways, but there's still so many restrictions on so many aspects of human living conditions and otherwise. So who knows what's going to happen? Obviously, we've talked about this in the past briefly, where no matter what happens, and this is of course coming from my own personal view based on faith and what have you, but no matter what happens as we progress into the future, things are only going to get worse, or at least seem to get worse. Things are going to become more hectic. There's going to be more wars. There's going to be more violence. All that stuff's going to continue to happen until, until the end of days, basically, and the coming of the Lord. Now, I think even if you don't believe in the Lord, I think you can say with relatively good certainty that things are only going to keep progressing to get worse and worse, especially right now in this current time that we're in. Now, of course, there's been a lot of discussion. This is kind of like changing a bit of the subject here, but there's been a lot of discussion online lately, especially on TikTok, in regards to a quote unquote new Earth that's kind of being developed, and how there seems to be a sort of shift within the universe where maybe the old universe is dying and a new one is beginning, and that there's going to be some people who split off into the new world while the others kind of stay behind in this, crud hole. In fact, you've sent me quite a few videos on that.
Yeah. I mean, they're calling it moving into the 5D. And we did bring this up an episode or so ago back, but yeah, supposedly the Earth is going through a shift, what's the term?
Do, 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 do,
Can't think of it off the top of my head, but basically it's splitting into two separate Earths, like Eric just mentioned. There will be those that are stuck on the 3D Earth, and then there will be those that transcend to the 5D Earth. If you are one of the awakened, and there's really no determination of what the awakened means, except for bringing your vibrational level up higher above, like aggression, fear, hatred. Those are very low vibrational emotions, and higher vibration would be love, happiness, peace, tranquility, stuff like that. I don't know if I buy into all of it. It is very interesting because of the journey I've been going through the spiritual awakening I've been going through since at least when did we start doing Night Stalkers? 2009, but really as of late 2020 is when it started really hitting me hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 2020 was kind of like a big moment, and of course, they had a lot to do with the pandemic starting. I think that had just a huge hit on a lot of us. But a lot of us have been feeling, myself included, high moments of anxiety, restless nights, very little sleep, a feeling that there's just something off, but not being able to pinpoint what it is. And it's there's been a lot of discussion around social media that senses like that or feelings like that are part of this whole change, and that there are people who are sensitive who are starting to feel these anxieties and these sense of movement or changes within our universe. But again, obviously there's no solid proof here. There's no statistics that back this up. But what I am curious about, which makes me question it all, is we're going from a 3D Earth to a 5D Earth. Well, what happened to the 4D Earth? We're just jumping a whole Earth?
Well, because of a lot of people believe that 4D is time.
So does 4D still exist in 5D, or does that become 6D since 4D is higher than 3D? Oh yeah, I'm about to confuse you.
Say that one more time.
The look on your face.
Because I really didn't follow at all.
No, I was saying, so if the 4D is time here on the 3D world, then does that mean time will become 6D on a 5D world? Since the 4D is higher than 3D and 6D would be higher than 5D.
Well, that's the thing is, and of course this is all speculation, but in any other dimension than the one that we are currently in right now, they don't experience time. We experience time, we just don't live in it, is what it's basically what they're trying to get at.
Right. Okay, so we're not talking. So when we're talking about shifting into a 5D world, we're not talking about a world that's similar to ours. It's a completely different universe in that case. It's a spiritual realm, not a physical one. In a sense.
Again, this is all speculation, but what people have described will happen is those that go to the 5D Earth will have a physical body for a time, but will eventually become beings of light, is what they describe it.
You know what this sounds a lot like? The Book of Revelation. It's curious to me.
Earth is getting super hot. Like they're talking right now about boiling hot temperatures on the Earth right now. So who knows? And who knows? Maybe the Book of Revelation is talking about this very exact moment in terms of a religion scope. Who knows? But that particular book, it talks about the end of days and Jesus coming back to Earth to set things right, basically. Correct?
Yes, but prominently in the birth or development of the new heaven and the new earth. in which the old earth
right,
passes
right.
away and the new everything is good.
Right. And, that's one of those things too. Like, don't buy into everybody's explanation. Are we? I'm sure it's very possible that all of this is happening. Is it going to happen? Like, people are predicting, oh, you know what? It's coming real soon. It's coming real soon. It's been coming real soon for, I don't know,
thousands of years.
I was going to say, yeah, since the Bible came out at least, or the first Bible was released.
It's been, it's an ongoing thing. But that's the point, because I mean, at least in terms of the scriptures, when that time comes, it's going to come like a thief. You won't know it. You won't be ready for it. And that's one thing that a lot of these doomsday preppers are always trying to do. They're trying to prepare themselves for it and get ready. But the fact is, there is no true, preparedness. You're never going to be ready. It'll come and strike like a thief in the night. So keep that in mind. Be on your toes, and be cautious of what you believe and don't believe. Just leave it at that.
Trying to think, what else did you want to, is there anything else that you've been thinking about lately?
Well, yeah, you know what? There is something. And so lately I've been kind of on this kick of just going through some of the old Norse belief systems. And in particular, of course, I'm talking about Vikings' early beliefs in pre-Christian religion. So one thing that I told you or sent you a text the other day that said, did you know that many of these stories were written by Christians? And what I meant by that is basically our current knowledge of Vikings, about the Vikings' early beliefs, that's primarily pre-Christian religion. Their pre-Christian religion is really just like a patchwork quilt of information from many places, periods, and people. So we don't have any direct evidence from the Vikings of their beliefs. These are just stories that we've heard throughout generations that have been passed down from person to person. Now, the most important sources about the old Nordic religion are the poems of the Elder Edda and the Younger Edda. That's the Poetic Edda and the Prose Edda, a book containing retellings of the Nordic myths written by Snorri, I think it's Snorri, Sturluson. Now, both of these books were actually written by Christian historical writers at the start of the medieval period. And these writers must have probably learned these stories about the Vikings from other people. And therefore, the sources do not always inform us how the Vikings saw Nordic gods, but instead how Christians perceived them. So there's a good chance of everything we know regarding these Old Norse gods and the beliefs of the Vikings could be completely false. And I just found that really fascinating, because I always hear people saying that, well, the Vikings believe this, the Vikings believe that. But it's really a melting pot of what the Vikings believe, because nobody really knows. They're just stories passed down without any real subject matter. But one of the things that I did find that was really interesting is that there are really only a few sources of information on the Viking period itself. And they consist of descriptions written by Arabic travelers, Christian accounts from Western Europe, Skaldic poetry, and runestones, which we had talked about a couple of times here on the show. But early legal texts also contain information about pre-Christian religion and its practices. And there's really a strong belief that the Norse faith is actually based off of another religion. It's actually copied off of the Greek religion and what we know about Zeus and everybody. The gods really line up. They're very similar. The practices are very similar. The stories are very similar. So there's some belief that the Nordic people, the Vikings, had actually copied that religion from the Greeks, and that this Nordic belief system actually stems from the Mediterranean. Fascinating to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've talked about how the conquering peoples at the time would basically not necessarily copy the religion, but blend them in to the religion that they were practicing at the time. I mean, Greek mythology went into Roman mythology as well.
Right. Oh, yeah, for sure. And, there is evidence that the Nordic gods were worshipped as early as the Iron Age, which is roughly 300 years before the beginning of the Viking period. So this wasn't something that the Vikings just kind of made up on their own. The Nordics gods already existed.
Right.
Now, there have been various depictions, and these include, of course, the war god Tyr with his hand in the mouth of the wolf Fenrir, as well as the noble god Balder, who was killed by an arrow. Now, when we think about the Norse faith, of course, Fenrir and Tyr are very prominent stories here, in which Fenrir is basically tricked into being tied down with magical chains that were created by, I think, elves or dwarfs, I forget. And that Fenrir had made a deal with Tyr that if he can't break out of them, if he finds out he was tricked, he can bite Tyr's hand off, which he does. And now, again, we see this. We always talk about this as being a Viking thing, part of the Viking belief system. But this is a story, apparently, that has 300 years older than Vikings, than the whole Viking period, which I think is, again, just kind of crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is when people talk about how certain gods are similar to Jesus and the God of the Bible too. It just fascinates me to see all the similarities of religion as a whole, because, you know, my personal belief that no particular religion necessarily has it 100% right, just because religion is man's way of trying to understand something that they can't understand, basically.
Right. I mean, yes, and it's also kind of that thing that science can't prove, and it's still this whole big debate. Now, one thing that, since we're already here on topic, there are three prominent things in regard to the whole Norse belief system or the Viking picture of the universe, and that is the home of the gods, the giants, and other beings. They're basically three classifications. And so, since we haven't talked too much about Norse mythology, I think we touched on it a very little bit when we were going through our religious series or religion series on religion, but we didn't get too deep into it. But the home of the gods, of course, is Asgard, floated in the air and was a large fortified castle with high walls around it. The giants basically lived at the edge of the cosmos. These were the enemies of both gods and humans, and the giants were related to Nordic gods, but were nevertheless very big enemies, and they constantly battled each other. And even Thor would, in particular, go out of his way to start fights and try to kill as many giants as he can. But as we all know, the Vikings equated giants with evil and chaos for whatever reason. And at the end of the world, quote unquote, Ragnarok, the giants and gods and humans would all meet in a deadly battle. There's very few religions that end the world in a deadly battle. Most of them do. And then there's, of course, these other beings. I think it's Yggdrasil's roots lived the Norns. Now, these were female spirits for both gods and humans. They spun the inevitable threads of fate and were arbiters of life. But there are two beings which are by far the most dangerous and most feared beings of all of the Viking universe. Do you know what those two beings are?
I believe Fenrir is one of them, right?
Correct. That's one. That's 100 points for you.
Did you say powerful and feared?
Most feared and dangerous.
And dangerous.
So it could be powerful. Same thing in this case.
I don't know the second one.
I'll give you a hint. He's Fenrir's brother.
Is it the world serpent?
It is the world serpent, also known as the Midgard serpent, aka his real name, Jormungandr. This is the serpent that basically fills the entire earth under the oceans. Two of the most dangerous, most feared creatures in all of the Norse religion. Do you know what their sister name is? One more question. I'm not going anywhere with this. I'm just curious.
I don't
It's
know who
three
their
siblings.
sister is.
Their sister is Hel, Hel.
For some reason, I was thinking that, but I didn't realize that was
Yeah.
their sister.
Yeah. So, Loki basically had relations with his wife, a giantess. And the giantess and Loki combined, of course, made Fenrir, who I think is the youngest of the three. Hel is the oldest, I believe, and Jormungandr is the middle child. If I'm not mistaken, I could be completely wrong. But basically, what happened was Odin was fearful of the three of them and decided, because he knew that they were dangerous, they're giants, and he ended up sending Hel into, well, hell, basically. So Hel was sent to Hell to kind of, as not really a punishment per se, but she was given the power to watch over it. She was kind of the goddess of hell in this case. Jormungandr couldn't really do anything with him, so he just sent him to Earth and put him into the oceans where he stayed. And Fenrir actually is the one creature or the one sibling that Odin kept up in Asgard with everybody as a puppy. He was so fearful of Fenrir, of the three siblings, that he wanted to try to raise Fenrir as kind of his own. He wanted him on the side of the Asgardians. But as fate would have it, one thing happened that would change fate and pretty much send everything into Ragnarok, send Ragnar into motion. And that is basically a prophecy in which I forget who it was, but it was a prophet who came to Odin and said that the wolf Fenrir would kill Odin. And instead of Odin continuing to try to raise Fenrir as a good wolf, he became scared and decided to have him chained to the earth for thousands of years. And they tricked him. And that one little decision to trick Fenrir and chain him caused so much hatred to build over thousands of years that Fenrir became hateful of the Asgardian people, and in particular Odin, breaks free during Ragnarok, and voila, the prophecy comes true. So I just always find it interesting when prophets say something, if you would just do the opposite of what the prophet says is going to happen, maybe the prophecy won't come true. But what do you know? People are people.
Well, I mean, that could be said for, pretty much any prophet, any doomsday prophet, I guess doomsday prophet. We always buy into, it's coming, but we don't try and consider what can we do to make sure it doesn't.
Right, to prevent it. Nope, we're just going to play right into it.
Oh, goodness. It's interesting to hear. I mean, I have studied Nordic mythology before, as well as Greek and Roman mythology, but I didn't really, I don't remember a lot of the Nordic religion, and I guess it's been a really long time because I didn't know some of the things that you were talking about. But that's interesting. And again, growing up in the Christian faith, I start to see some of the similarities to Lucifer, not being chained to the earth, but being chained under the earth, or quote under the earth in hell. And again, him being spiteful and hating God for putting him there to have to deal with all the spirits and beings that go there as well.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. And of course, both fell supposedly from pride.
Well, right.
It is very interesting. What do you call it? Parallels there.
Oh, God. We've gone all over the place for this episode.
That we have.
Anything else you can think of for our farewell?
No, I think that's all I've got. I'm tapped out.
Yeah. All right, folks. Well, it's been a blast talking to you guys over the past 9 years. Stay tuned as we talked about. We will release an episode here or there eventually. Eric and I just need a little bit of a breather to kind of be excited about the paranormal again, I think is the best term to phrase it.
I think that's a good term.
But it's been a blast. Keep listening. We'll keep the archives more than likely on Spreaker so that you guys can still listen to them as the time goes. And that's where we'll post the periodical episode here and there. But yeah, I guess this is not goodbye, but farewell. And this is Justin.
And I'm Eric. Peace.
This is ParaTruth Radio. Hi, I'm Sean McCabe.
And I'm Carrie McCabe.
We are, well, married, obviously, but we're also obsessed with the darker side of things.
True crime stories, alien abductions, poltergeists. If it leaves you scratching your head and keeping those lights on at night, we want to hear about it.
That's why we host the podcast, Ain't It Scary, with Sean and Carrie.
Every week, we bring our listeners a true story guaranteed to send chills down your spine. From history's most brutal serial killers to the mystery of spontaneous human combustion.
Yep, lots of these stories leave unanswered questions behind, and you'll get to poke through the rubble of the evidence with a hardened skeptic and
someone whose mind is more open to fun.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
You can find Ain't It Scary with Sean and Carrie wherever you get your podcasts, and on social media at Ain't It Scary. Come play with us.